and welcome to another episode of The Real Franchise. This video series is designed simply to deliver real information and answers and insights into franchising, into having your own business. And this series is brought to you by James Home Services Australia. My name's Justin Kelly. I'm one of the owners of the company. And this is another one of our episodes in meeting some of the team around the country. And today we're joined by Mark Dann. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Justin. Great to be here.
And where in the country are you based?
So I'm in central Queensland, pretty much, in the Bundaberg Childers region.
Where I got married many moons ago. So I know the area well. But have you been in Bundy Childers long? Before James?
Not long. Before James. We moved here in February last year. So It'd be a bit over 12 months.
Yeah. And how long have you been in James now?
Since November last year. The end of November, I started the business.
And we are in the end of May, so that would make it 6 months.
Yeah, so 6 months.
6 months in. Right. And I guess, what's a bit of, just for those listening, what's a bit of your background? Where do you come from? Like, what's your sort of experience and history before James?
So my background experience is predominantly from the horticultural industry, reasonably broad throughout the industry. So I started off third-generation family farmer, where we ran pineapples and orchards down on the Sunshine Coast hinterland.
Yep.
So I was there for 27 years on the family farming property.
Yep.
Wife and I started our own business in 2002, aside from the family, when my dad retired.
Yep.
And we did that for about 12 years.
Okay.
And an opportunity came up in the horticultural industry with a company that brought in new fruit cultivars and varieties from all over the world. So used to handle a lot of the IP management, if you like. So managing contractual arrangements and whatnot for plant breeders and plant propagators from all over the world. And I worked for the commercial arm. So once we had varieties, I was the person that travelled to growers, spoke to the growers about them, and then picked out properties for testing those varieties. And then anything that came up looking good for the future, then to commercialise that and organise planting. So I was there for 12 years. And also wore another hat in the nursery and garden industry at the same time, where we had a subsidiary company. So did a lot of marketing there, marketing products to the home gardening sector, predominantly fruit trees, but a lot of ornamentals as well. So I had nearly 11 years marketing there with them. So I got to travel Australia and speak with all the Bunnings guys and masters of the era and learn a lot about marketing.
Okay.
So finished that up Finished that up in 2022. Yeah.
And we're in mid-26 now. So what led you to finding James, or even thinking about having your own business in this sort of sector?
We travelled Australia for a couple of years from 2022. And did a lot of work as we travelled Australia with our caravan.
Yes.
So worked in predominantly packing sheds and things like that.
Yep.
But I always had in the back of my mind I'd like to find a small business to run.
Yep.
We decided that we'd pull up stumps from travelling Australia and settle down somewhere. So I took a job as an avocado farm manager in the Childers area where we are now.
Yes.
But still kept looking for a small business opportunity at the same time.
Right.
So really to be master of your own destiny, I guess, again, and not be working for people that there's always other issues with a lot of employers. So and did a lot of research into different businesses and came to James.
Well, I guess just being frank, what was it that sort of grabbed your attention about James when you were just looking before we started talking?
I like the professionalism, which is, my life experience has always been about professionalism, so along the same lines as James. Very, very good
Yep.
branding in particular and marketing, which I liked.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess like-minded to a point, up to the point where I met them and found out a bit more about them. And then I was even more impressed by James Home Services.
Right. Okay. And thinking back, because it's been 6 months now, so it's not quite ancient history, but, half a year ago, how did you find the process from, well, I guess you put in an inquiry, came to me, I called you, we had a chat, then we got together like this. From that point on, I guess, how did you find the journey? Was there any things that stood out, any things you liked or didn't like about the information journey?
I think it was a very smooth process. I think I liked from the information and right through to now, still working, with a coach, with Ian as well. Yep. Still very smooth, very helpful, a lot of support, in the background behind the scenes, which probably stands out to me more than anything, which you generally don't get with a lot of businesses that you're involved with. So, I was pretty impressed with the support.
Right.
And still am.
Awesome. And I guess the big question, how do you feel your business is going now, 6 months in? Have you made the right decision, or is it still a bit wobbly? Or?
No, I don't think it's wobbly. I mean, managing the winter period is, going to be challenging, but always knew that before I even started the business. Coming from a horticultural and born in the country background and understanding growth and things like that. So, we're well and truly prepared going into the winter. And, we've got a plan that we know we've got to put into place so that we, come out of winter, I guess, and hit the ground running. So
yeah, absolutely. And I guess that's, as you know, I talk to a lot of people looking at starting a business, and one of the big concerns is how do you cope with winter and how do you prepare? I mean, without letting all the cats out of the bag, because it's a big question, what sort of things have you done that are in your game plan to make sure your winter's as stable as possible cash flow wise?
I guess probably about 5 or 6 weeks ago, started doing a lot of my marketing, and I get a lot of business from Facebook. I think about 75% of my business is from Facebook.
Wow.
Marketing. I've got about 20 sites in Childers and Bundaberg. So I started moving a lot of the advertising towards gardening because, we knew lawns were going to slow up and eventually stop. So there's not going to be a lot of lawn mowing come sort of June, July, August. So managing that, and definitely saw a direct change straight away with a lot more gardening inquiries. Because of that. Less jobs, but probably bigger jobs. So a lot of my inquiries can be full-day jobs and sometimes more as well. I mean, day and a half, I think, is the longest one I've had on gardening. So obviously pushing the business marketing towards gardening is working. There's no doubt the incomes, I still think, is going to drop off through that winter period. But it's still not going to be, I don't think, as down as low as what I thought it might be. It seems to be holding up pretty well. We get the odd week already that's been a little bit down on income. But then I'll have one big week, which should be double the income from the previous week. So it just depends on how my inquiries fall, and also I've got quite a few reoccurring customers now where they want me every 2 weeks or every month for gardening. So it just depends on where they come around. Sometimes they might fall all in the same week. So then it's a really busy, high income week.
Very true. We often talk about banking jobs for winter, or your with your existing regulars, and looking at gardening jobs and mulching, and like you say, changing your marketing. I know some of our guys in Sydney, they switch all the advertising, hedge trimming jobs and things like that, which has been, obviously keeps them going. I guess the other big question for those of us that aren't 21 anymore, the question often is, well, just the simple physicality of, it is tough physically running this sort of business, particularly on your own. And obviously it has benefits, but I think one of the disadvantages possibly, and this is, I guess, my question is, over the first 6 months, and you've come through a fairly hot period in Bundaberg, how have you coped with the weather and the physical side of it?
I mean, it was certainly a change from what I've been used to in the short term, because I was in an office for 12 years before we headed off around Australia and didn't do a lot of manual work within that business. Weekends, yes, because we had usually had big gardens and lawns, so I was always doing something. Yeah. Physically fit, very lucky that I am. Yep. So, but some of the hot days in particular where I had gardening jobs and there was more physical activity than just whippersnipping and mowing, certainly drained me early, but I just learned how to manage that, make sure I kept the fluids up. And I've learned that sometimes a gardening job that goes 8 or 9 hours is not a good idea. So I've started trying to split those. So 4 hours for the customer this week, and then maybe 4 hours in a fortnight time, or 4 hours next week. And most of them are quite happy with that. So that breaks it up as well.
Yeah. Rather than killing yourself in one day and being knocked out for the rest of the week. Yeah.
So pacing yourself, I guess. But I learned that when we were farming because, working in hot conditions, physical activity all the time. So I think really I've coped very well coming through the summer.
Right. Well, I guess just a couple of questions, maybe quick questions, just sort of wrapping up this chat. But I guess at the moment, what does your typical day look like?
Typical day, probably at the moment when it comes to gardening, is usually head off about 6:30 and make sure I arrive mostly at 7. If it's a bit further away, like some of my jobs at Woodgate, which is about 35 minutes, well, I usually make sure I start at 7:30 there and unload, get straight into it. I always grab lunch now. I didn't when I first started the business, which went against all my mind training over the years that you always should have lunch, and I think that affected me a bit. So I always, even if it's just enough time to eat some fruit for 10 minutes at lunch and then get back into it. I don't have smoko. And then if it's a full day job, generally finishing around about 4 o'clock and then home.
Okay. So do you find most of your days are that big, or do you work, like get home earlier some days, or?
Yeah, definitely. And I think when I learn to manage the winter a bit more, it'll probably be where I'll try and do 4 days a week and have Friday off.
Exactly.
Bit too early to jump the gun on that one yet. It mightn't be this winter, but by next winter I'll have learned to manage it a bit more. The summer, some days I'm home 2 o'clock.
Yep.
I generally try and fit 3 jobs into a day. Most of my jobs up here in central Queensland are averaged at 2 to 3 hours anyway. They're not sort of small jobs. I think I've only got one really small residential job, and the rest are all over quarter-acre properties, up to a couple of acres or even more on a couple. So,
well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So, fluctuates. Summer, definitely not. It was just full days every day, full on, and then answering phone calls at home for quotes and, doing your quoting work after your physical working hours, I guess, and sending off invoices and, because I find it easier with the poor internet coverage up here to just send my invoices out when I get home, because sometimes I don't have a connection, a mobile connection where I am. So, you're getting quite quick at that now anyway.
Okay. I guess one of the last questions, is there anything that you wish you'd known before getting into this business?
Probably not, because I did look into it pretty well and had good discussions with yourself in particular, beforehand. And as I said, Ian, the coach, is very helpful because often he'll bring things from the back of my mind that I know I should be doing, but Ian just brings them forward to the front. So that's very helpful. And now I'm into a routine.
Yeah.
But no, not really, Justin. And there's no doubt all the tools that were supplied in the beginning. The only thing I've added to those tools is a recip saw. So all the tools provided by James Same Services are just spot on. I haven't added anything else. Sometimes I could probably do with a pole saw.
Yeah.
But a lot of that work that's up high and big cuts probably is more tree services, job.
Okay.
So we've got plenty of tree services. So I just work with customers to organise that for them. And that's another way of not overdoing it, making big cuts with pole saws for 2 or 3 hours a day. It's just puts you too much under the pump. So
yeah. Okay, well, one last, I guess, two-pronged question. Any advice that you've got for anyone who's thinking of doing their own business in this sort of manner? And second part of that question, any sort of lessons you've learned that you think are good for someone to take aboard when they're looking at this?
What was your first question, part of that question, Justin?
Any sort of advice that to anyone who's looking, any words of wisdom, and then anything you've learned. So any advice or anything that you've learned on the journey?
Probably what I've learned along the journey is make sure that if you're looking to get into a lawn and garden business, you look into it and make sure that you have like the physical ability to do it, but also the mental ability to do it, because if you don't put everything into it, you're definitely not going to get the income, which I see a lot with a lot of the local guys here. Yeah. The ones I compete with that are charging $40 for a mowing job, you very seldom see them marketing. And if they do market, it's a one-liner and, give me a call type of thing. So, head down, I guess, in the business is very important. And things I've probably learnt is probably how to balance that physical work.
Yes.
Through the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And make sure you look after yourself, your body as well, plenty of fluids. So that's probably been the most important thing for anyone running this sort of business. Yeah. And never give up just when you think, you've got a week coming with not much work, as long as you keep marketing, putting all the James 8 steps into process as much as you can remember, which sometimes I don't remember. I've got to go back to them, or Ian reminds me.
Yeah.
Big help. So, stick to the process.
Yeah. No, excellent. No, that's good wisdom, good advice. Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, and I hope people listening take something out of that today. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Justin.